introduction. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And it is a pleasure and an honor for me to be invited to speak at your entrepreneurial conference. And what better place to address the topic than the birthplace of new ventures and innovative thinking. Stanford University Business School has a long and proud history. The focus here on leadership and innovation for the 21st century is really unparalleled. And I'm delighted personally to be able to be here to share our story with such a distinguished audience. The story of Four Seasons really began some 50 years ago, but I believe some of the lessons I learned along the way as we started are still relevant today. In fact, as Rob mentioned, I recently chronicled my experience in a book on Four Seasons, and I did that because I thought it was important for the 35,000 plus people in the company and the thousands more who will be joining the company as we continue to grow. Because I believe if one can understand how and why we got to where we are today, it can give them a better sense of how to deal with the future. But the book also brought what my wife Rosalie called the unexpected rewards. Hearing from friends of long ago and from many people I didn't know. Many writing very kind letters, and there is one that I'd like to share with you. Mr. Jay Nussbaum made reference to a quote that Rosalie wrote in the foreword. Something I said many, many years ago, that I believed the only thing you can control is your attitude. Well, when he read that, he sent me a copy of a memorandum titled Attitude and asked, did I write it? Which I didn't, and I had never seen it before. But I thought it was compelling. So I'd like to share that with you today. And the title is Attitude, and I'm quoting now from this memorandum. The longer you live, the more you will realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearances, giftedness, or skills. It will make or break a company, a church, a home, a person. The remarkable thing is, we have a choice each and every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, our attitude. Life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we react to it. We are in charge of our attitudes. So there you have it. It's a message that I thought you might all find helpful. And I guess the concept is part of the fabric of my book. So I thought I'd share with you some of the fundamentals of our story with you today. And I think you will see that the depth of our service culture and our commitment to it has seen us through the good and challenging times alike, even through what we went through this last 2009. Our story begins on Jarvis Street in Toronto, where the first Four Seasons opened 49 years ago. And I can assure you, I never thought at the time that Four Seasons would become what it represents today. In fact, I can share with you in all candor, there was no vision, there was no grand dream. But throughout all Four Seasons history, there has been a consistent thread, and that is what I'd like to tell you about today. It's the oldest part of our story, and it's what propels us forward as we continue to grow globally. Increasingly, I think it is something that matters greatly to every organization. Now, it may seem obvious that in the hotel business, our objective is to provide great service. The trick is pulling it off successfully, and that requires an enormous commitment, as our experience will show. Because in today's business environment, it's simply not good enough to rely on the strength of the product alone. International rivalry will make product quality a given. And as products mature, technology begins and brings parity. So why do so many companies who won't spend what it takes to keep their customers spend 5 times as much to try to get a new one? At Four Seasons, we've always believed that if we give our customers value, our customers will give us a profit, and that has been proven over a very long period of time. But for the essential question for us in the early days was, what did our customers value most? Market research said it was luxury. And luxury didn't necessarily mean elegant surroundings and gourmet meals. When we looked closely, it became clear that the greatest luxury for our customers was time, and service could help them make the most of that, giving them greater productivity, greater enjoyment, and for us, and for the customers, a memorable experience. Of course, designing service to help busy people make the most of their precious time can be challenging. We can't pre-check service or sample it. Production and consumption are simultaneous. Those few moments of service delivery are a company's make or break point when reputation is either confirmed or denied. And the outcome in our industry normally depends on the frontline employees, doormen, bellmen, waiters, maids, the lowest paid people, and often, in too many companies, the least motivated. These frontline staff represent our product to our customers. In the most realistic sense, they are the product, its personal component. So to win or even survive in the coming service battles, customer satisfaction must be everybody's business. To be at the top of our game at Four Seasons, we have to get service standards down to the bottom of the pyramid, by far the hardest job in everyday management. And that process begins with us, with our hiring policy. Most organizations hire for experience and the company image. How does the individual fit with the company image? We hire for attitude. We want people who like other people and are therefore more motivated to serve them. Competence we can teach. Attitude is ingrained. When we opened the Four Seasons in New York, we met more than 15,000 applicants for 400 jobs. We interviewed the top prospects 4 or 5 times, and the last time was with the general manager of the hotel. A rigorous, highly selective, expensive procedure, but minor compared with the cost of struggling for years to change habits that come with ingrained poor attitudes. New surveys now show that most managers in North America believe what employees want most is job security and competitive pay. But job security today especially is very tentative, to say the least, and while salary is certainly a consideration, other things matter much more. And polls taken recently for Fortune's annual listing, as Rob mentioned, and the 100 best companies to work for, which I'm happy to say has always included us since it started, find that employees in these firms value primarily 3 things. First, to work for leaders who inspire their best. Second, a physical environment that makes work enjoyable. And third, and I think most important, a sense of purpose and a feeling they're working for more than a paycheck, that they're helping to build a company that they can take pride in. In short, some daily meaning along with their daily bread. Great companies are like armies, which fight for a common purpose, creating a sense of unity and belonging that really does breed teamwork. We may live in a work world of reason, intensified by technology, but every customer perception, every employee response is governed by feelings and beliefs. And when employees feel their future is linked to that of a company whose values they share, it inspires commitment to that company's success. In every area, we push down responsibility from head office to our frontline people who have the authority to make most decisions that they feel are needed to satisfy our guests. We treat them as members of an elite team, but we set very challenging goals. And that's why early on, we set a mandate of 0 mistakes. Inevitably, of course, mistakes occur. That's natural. But when our employees are trusted to use their common sense, they can and do turn mishaps into new service opportunities. Then, what the customer remembers is not the complaint, but the outcome. In our experience, and this goes over many, many years, performance rises to meet expectations. The resultant customer satisfaction boosts employee confidence and self-esteem, and living up to that growing self-image keeps raising performance levels. This requires managers who are less bosses than mentors and communicators, whose role is to bring out each individual's best and weld them into a winning team by being upfront and open, letting people know how they're doing, and by being accessible and visible. And communication is crucial. For employees to act on their own initiative, they have to know our priorities, and we have to know what our customers are saying to them. We have to recognize their contributions and listen to them consistently. At Four Seasons, we pay as much attention to employee complaints as to guest complaints. We upgrade employee facilities whenever we upgrade a hotel, disallow class distinction in cafeterias and parking lots, establish career paths and promotion from within, and we augment the physical atmosphere with a wide range of benefits. As one employee put it, I think a little exuberantly, great pay, great perks, great food. I'm treated like a five-diamond hotel guest. From the beginning, we've always had an implicit operating philosophy. So some 30 years ago, as we expanded, I decided to make it explicit. So I sat down with our director of communications and detailed a formal credo based on the golden rule, the cornerstone of what would later be called our corporate culture. In essence, to treat others, all others, customers, employees, partners, suppliers, as we would want to be treated. There was nothing new about this. This is a standard statement many people would use. Even back then, such credos were common, though seldom believed. What was new was that we enforced it. Senior managers who couldn't or wouldn't walk the talk were all winnowed out within a few years. It was a painful process and personally distressing, and perhaps the hardest thing I ever had to do. But the fastest way for management to destroy its credibility is to say employees come first and to be seen putting them last. Better not to profess any values than not to live up to them. Now, conceiving a vision and a strategy is relatively easy. The hard part is selling it, getting it across to all levels of employees. And that became my task, preaching the gospel of service every day on every trip to every hotel, continuously restating it, developing it, focusing employees at every level on one priority, giving customers added value through service. And that's the way it has to be. As managers, we all live in a glass house. Every action watched and discussed on the company grapevine. If we're seen showing greater concern for power, prestige, and cost than for the customer and the values we profess, then we forfeit belief and trust, along with our goal of trying to be the best. Trust. Trust is the unseen and too often neglected determinant of corporate success. It has never been a more important consideration than it is today. It's the emotional capital of leadership, building community spirit, certifying communication, and fostering teamwork. It's the essence of a brand name and a synonym for customer loyalty. We've yet to go into a location, and we're now in more than 30 countries, where upholding the golden rule hasn't brought workers on side. We have found exceptional workers in Eastern Europe and the Caribbean, in the heart of New York City and in the pineapple fields of rural Hawaii. In Maui, for example, those workers made Four Seasons #1 in the island after its first year of opening. And every year, our service culture grows stronger. We see the effects every day in each hotel. Employees develop a camaraderie that deepens, creating a sense of community that makes cooperation the norm. This was illustrated more profoundly than any of us could have imagined during the tsunami in Southeast Asia. When the wave approached and struck our hotel in the Maldives, each employee acted intuitively to ensure the comfort and safety of our guests. They did everything they could think of to ease minds and calm nerves. Some were even credited with saving lives. Within 24 hours, they evacuated the island and chartered a plane that flew every guest to safety. Following that tsunami, there was an outpouring of gratitude from guests who had been saved, and one wrote, and I'd like to quote that letter to you. "Let me stress that your group's strength rests on rock, made up of the local employees who, while having been selected for doing their job well, have shown in a time of utmost crises a level of dedication that no training and no amount of money can ever generate." Clearly, our employees' action that day touched our guests in ways they will never forget. What they accomplished in the midst of adversity may sound extraordinary, but I suspect any of our employees around the world would act with the same dignity and grace. They're motivated by an inner need to do well by others. Our people delight and surprise our guests every day. The sum of their efforts is what makes Four Seasons unique. So by nurturing the full potential of every employee from top to bottom in any company, I believe that businesses can tap the most important resource for success for the 21st century. It's something to think about as each of you look to the future and pursue new ventures or strengthen the ones you've already established. Thank you once again for including me in your conference. I wish you continued success and a bright outlook for the future. Thank you all.
We're now going to open up to questions. Now, I'd like for you, if you don't mind, to repeat the question because we don't have microphones in the crowd.
Sure.
Thank you.
Founders like yourself are very charismatic and very motivating and inspiring to their employees. What is the plan for Four Seasons when you are not leading the company anymore?
I'm embarrassed to read the question to you because he's complimenting me. He's asking if being charismatic and such, how are people able to follow in terms of what you've done? We should all only try to do what we can do best. And my skill set allowed me to become what I am. And clearly, as my role in the company, I've always had to prepare for the natural evolution of seniority in the company, and we've always been able to promote from within. So every senior leadership position in this company has changed over the last many years, all from within. And they've carried on, and we call it a seamless transition. They all come with different skills. And I believe, and history will prove, that leadership is situational. Skills needed for one time in terms of the issues that a company might be facing might be very different than other times. So as Four Seasons has now evolved, the strategy for the company is set. We all know what we're doing and how we can get to the next stage. And that was based upon what we refer to now as the 4 pillars. In reconstructing the company, there were 4 key strategic decisions that we've identified, and they are based upon quality, service, culture, and brand. And the strategy going forward is to continue to reinforce those 4 pillars. So there is no longer a need for, say, a vision. There's a need for execution, for competence in being able to, how do you administer the company as it's getting bigger? How do you become more efficient, more effective? So the people who are presently in the position to keep moving up the ladder and to take over my role are clearly skilled at being able to do that. And they've grown up with the company over their last 20, 25 years, so they intuitively know and understand. It does not need somebody like me to continue running the company. It needs people who have an understanding of that's why I said in the book, why I did it, is to give them an understanding of how we got to where we are, and if to start something is much more difficult, so to keep it going becomes just, hey, we know what got us where we are, let's not lose sight of it. So the best example I can use when I say leadership is situational, and you're too young to go back this far, but in World War II, Winston Churchill took England out of the depths of what was a frightening war and led the country to success. Great charismatic leader. In the United States, after President Roosevelt died, Harry Truman took over, a man of great competence who could take chaos and turn it into an organization so they could move forward. 2 very different leaders, but the times dictate what's required. So I believe in Four Seasons, we have prepared for the continual evolution and what will be a seamless transition. Yes, if something happened to me, there might be a shock, hit by a bus, etc. I should change that. My wife heard me say that one day, and she says, look, get a little more romantic. Make it a Mack truck or something. But I believe there might be shock for the first 3 to 6 months. And after that, everybody in the company would be digging deep to make sure they showed that this company's got strength to go forward. So we shouldn't look to copy. We should look to apply our skills. And as you will all learn, your role in senior leadership is to prepare for those people who should be following. And that's really what I've been able to do, and it's worked out quite well.
Thank you. In this audience here in particular, you have a lot of entrepreneurs that are working hard on ideas or ventures to eventually take them. You, in 2007, took the company private. Can you talk a little bit about the decision process?
Yeah. The question was that your group here is looking as venture capitalists, and how do you take companies public? Well, the end of the question was, we've gone private, and how do we think about that? The idea of going private was not my idea, and it wasn't done for any financial reasons. It came as a proposal that looked interesting after we sort of dissected it a bit, that there wouldn't be any real change, because I wasn't looking for a change in my lifestyle in terms of my workload. What appealed to me as I controlled the company is that here was an opportunity where I could control the change of ownership into hands that I thought would preserve and continue the legacy of Four Seasons. Because, as I say, if something happened to me under my control, my family would have to sell, and that could be a jump ball, and highest bidder might be able to buy the company. So this was an unusual opportunity where the type of investors we were talking to really were not investing as venture capitalists might do to buy and sell. These were people who could afford to own long-term. And that was the key. Was this intended to be a long-term commitment? And clearly, as the people you know, Prince will lead and Cascade, Bill Gates' company, these are long-term players. So for the company and everybody in the company, when you ask about the leadership and their future relies upon the stability of the company and our ability to continue in the path that's been set. It gives everybody in the company not just a degree of comfort, but an ability to look at their future, understand their position in the company, and realize that there will be no change that will upset them. So it really establishes a very strong foundation for the company to continue on the path that it has set for themselves. So it's worked out from the individuals in the company, from myself, et cetera, to everybody's satisfaction. Yes, ma'am.
So at the beginning you mentioned that you didn't have a vision or a grand dream, but clearly you built a global brand. And at what point did that turn for you? What catalyzed that change?
The question is, when did the idea of Four Seasons come to be a vision? Well, as I say, I didn't know much about the hotel business, so my role into it was not to go into the hotel business. It was a real estate play, just building it and see what happens. So I'm still a builder by trade, and construction was my background. But after we had built the third hotel, and that was 1970 when we opened the Inn on the Park in London, and I had put together a business deal that we were involved with a conglomerate at that time, ITT, to build in partnership a major convention hotel in downtown Toronto. And the contrast of how that hotel ran, which was very successful as a convention hotel, and what we had done in London, England, gave me a look into the industry that appealed to me and that I thought we might do something special, which was in London. This was our third hotel. We opened and we're competing against what today and then were the best hotels in the world. You've heard the names, the Savoy, Claridge's, Keynote, Ritz. These were the grand hotels of the era. And we were up against them in terms of competing for the business. Well, in the first year of operation, we were awarded the best hotel in Europe and beat all those players on their home field. So the question was, if we could do that there, could we not do it everywhere? So the contrast of what we were doing there, this was a small boutique geared to the personal service of treating every customer who came through the front door as a guest, not deciding who should be our customers. Compared to the convention hotel that was very successful but dealing in a different type of market, that gave me the idea, which developed to be the very first key strategic decision that I mentioned before, that we decided then to only operate medium-sized hotels of exceptional quality and to try to be the best. So that is where you might say the vision started. But that's a far cry. You know, people looked at it and they said, well, you know, if you want to only operate one type of hotel, that's no big deal. But to say we're going to be the best, that was a stretch. Now, I didn't say we were the best. That was setting an objective that every hotel we opened, could we follow the format that allowed us to compete against the best and be a winner. And that's what We did. So that was the beginning, you might say, of the vision. Yes, sir.
Can you talk a little about how you use the diversity of your employees to deal with the diversity of your customers and how that personalization is transferred across the enterprise?
Yeah. As I mentioned, we base the philosophy and the principles of the company on that one simple, profound statement of what the golden rule represents. In our language, it's simply do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But if you look at history, you will see that that statement, the golden rule, is part of every religious belief. Every religion in the world, in their scriptures, recite that principle. Different ways, but meaning exactly the same. So as a company, we, as I say, hire looking for people who have a similar work ethic and a value system. And that is where this principle of attitude. There isn't any country, city in the world that we couldn't go into and pull together a core of people from that community who believe in that principle. It's been proven over and over again. It's the way most of you have been brought up. It's the way when you go out in the world and get married, the way you're going to want to bring your children up. And that brings diversity of different cultures, people, background, beliefs, but with one common value system. And that is the tie that binds this company together. It was a theory I put out a long time ago when I said before, we're going to try to be the best. And they said, well, what do you mean? How are you going to do that? And I said, we're going to try to make the quality of our service our competitive advantage. We're going to do it in a way, because that's how we became and how we beat the other people in London. It wasn't a grand building. It wasn't having any difference. It was that we dealt with service as a very precious thing. So we're saying we're going to make the quality of our service our competitive advantage. That's what's going to define us and distinguish us from our competitors. Well, if that's what we're going to do, who's going to do it? It's going to be the people. The people who work in the hotel, it's on their shoulders. So we had to give them what they needed and what they wanted in order for them to perform at this level. And that's what the culture did. The culture said, could we create a highly qualified, competent workforce based on an ethical credo? Could we? Well, in practice over many, many years, the kids who joined the company early, and that was their work ethic, have proven that that theory is now a fact. There is absolutely no doubt about it for anybody in this company who recognizes and believes in it. So the base is there, the momentum's there, and as we are growing worldwide, we can go anywhere, and we'll bring together a core of people. Let me just, to emphasize that point, we opened a hotel in Istanbul some years ago. About a year after, I was having dinner with one of the owners and his wife, and she asked me, where do you get these people from? And I said, what people? He said, the people who work in the hotel, where do they come from? And I said, well, I guess, the local community or the villages surrounding the city. She says, no. These are not Turkish people. I said, what do you mean? She said, I have Turkish people working for me, and these are not Turkish people. I was with the general manager. I said, Marcus, where do you get them from? He said, of course they are. It's the same people. It's how you treat them. Give them the respect, the dignity they're entitled to, an opportunity, just an opportunity for people in that part of the world is enormous. We're fortunate to be born in a part of the world we all have opportunity. But going to those other countries that live under depressed states, it's not as easy. So there isn't any doubt in any person who works in Four Seasons that the ability of giving people an opportunity, they will rise to the occasion, take on that challenge. Yes, sir.
Going back to the era when you built the hotel in London, after that, I assume the company acquired some culture. There was a dynamism that brought it along. At that point, what was your main concern about your business? Was it that there was a scarcity problem that could appear in terms of what, if you're going to hire the right people? Was it an uncertainty problem that whether the market was the right market to get into? Was it a dynamism problem, whether there was enough growth and enough momentum in the company? And what was your main concern at that time when you made this investment?
Yeah. So the question was, as we started going down the road to growth, what was going to be the problem? Could we continue on what we set out to be the best? What were the bumps along the road that we might face? Good question, and that question kept coming up. So after we had 5 hotels, I would get from the company, we hold staff, town hall meetings, and they say, how many more hotels can you build and operate with this fanatical attention to every detail and every customer's needs? And I said, I don't know. But if the last hotel we open and operate doesn't embody everything we've learned, and we should be better if we've done that, and we can't say we are, I said, that'll be it. Because I wasn't interested. Didn't have the skills or anything to start build a big company. I was interested in building a good company. Well, that question kept coming up, 5, 10, 15 hotels. I gave the same answer because I did not know, was size going to be, our Waterloo? Well, after that, I stopped saying it because you could see size had nothing to do with it. It was just a question, could we continue to do it the same way? Would we lose sight of what it was that made us successful? So we centered on and focused on stick with a game plan. Don't look for new ideas. But if we continue to grow as we have, that will be the way we'll become the best company. Because what we were really saying is that it wasn't a corporate organization that was doing this. It was each hotel. We put the mandate out. It's in your hands. You're the ones there who are dealing with the customers day in and day out, and we rely upon you. So it was the general manager and his senior people who had to instill in the people what was required of them and to manage them in a way that made each hotel the best. That's exactly the plan as we just opened in Beirut that we are using today. But now we have a company that can help each hotel much more than we had back then. So if we are able to build the company and to grow and get the reputation we've got with the experience we've got now, the support we've got now, the bench strength of people and a brand name, clearly we should be able to continue to make each hotel as it opens to be the best in that city. So that was the threat. Could we? We didn't know. And in practice, we've proved it's not size, it's getting and bringing together that diversity of people who have similar work ethics. Yes, sir.
So how did you deal with people or companies or entities that didn't follow the golden rule when dealing with you?
You mean maybe partners or suppliers? Yeah. Well, you do run into difficulties. There's no question about that. Business is never a smooth road. You address those problems when they occur and continue dealing with them. You just don't lower your standards. Well, we try to join the question was, how do we control other companies or other people from not acting in a way which would be consistent with what we believe? Usually you're making a business deal. What you want to do is make sure you're dealing with somebody, your partner, that you have a degree of compatibility with, that you're not joining forces with somebody who's completely off the radar screen in terms of what you believe and how you act. But you do run into the problems, and you manage to get through those, and they're not always successful. But you learn by those experiences. And we've had, some mishaps along the way. Thought we had a good deal, didn't work out, lost a hotel, lost a lot of money in the process. It was a country that we couldn't do anything about. The laws there were very different than what we believe. So you gain experience, try not to make the same mistake a second or third time. So as a company, we've run into our share of problems. Clearly, we've been able to overcome them, otherwise we wouldn't continue to be successful. But today we have, in spite of the economy and what's happened in part of 2008 and 2009, our pipeline of development, we've penciled more deals in the last 2 years than we ever had before. So presently as a company, we have over 50 hotels that are under one form of development or another. So as a company, we will become 150, we're 83 hotels now, we'll become 150 hotels over the next 8 to 10 years. So it's a robust industry, and we're going to continue to stay focused at that one end of it. Yes, sir.
So, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for two things. I don't have a question for you, but I do a number of large events through the year. We use your hotel down the street here. And from the GM all the way down, what you say is true. What I'd like to thank you for, though, is that it's taking care of our customers, who we bring there, but it's required us to be better as an organization, and our staff has raised the bar as well. So that, I don't know that that's part of your values, but that's part of your halo effect.
Good. That wasn't a question, it was a compliment. So, so I thank you. And that does happen because people then see maybe there's another way that we can improve our business, what we're doing. Every business, no matter what you're going into, whether it's hedge funds or dealing with your own company, people are the reason a company succeeds. That's why I said it's a resource that is often overlooked. But if you deal with people in your company or in your control in a manner which gets them all working in the same direction, rowing, the people power is remarkable. Yes, ma'am.
So many students want to become entrepreneurs have to start small, just like you did. Can you tell something about the different styles of leadership that you used during the different phases of your company?
The question was there different styles of leadership that I deployed, I guess, or employed as you're starting a company? Do you change? I don't think so. I'm sure when I was younger, I might have been presenting different ways because I was probably selling without much experience, obviously. But I don't think you change as a person. I think you should deal with your skills and don't try to become something that you might not be. I think we each all have a skill set, and we all have weaknesses, and we try to conceal the weaknesses and dwell on our strengths and to bring people together who have different strengths, so together we then become more successful. So I would say start small, and I was talking to Jessica here this morning, and we talked about, well, what drives you? Follow your passions. Don't decide today where you want to be 5 years from today. Pick it up, get started, see where it takes you, and just put 100% of your effort into what you're going to do. Don't use the word if. If I tried harder, I would have succeeded. If this didn't happen. Go for it, accept the realities. If you're running a race and you came in last, but you ran your heart out, you know what? Hey, I gave it my all. I know where I stand. So that's all you got to worry about, and not try to sort of manipulate who you are. But you've all got abilities. You wouldn't be in this school if you didn't have the skill set and abilities to continue growing. I was saying this morning to Robin, judge yourself based upon what you've already succeeded with. You've accomplished more in your life now than most people ever do, because you've been able to apply to a very prominent school and be accepted. So clearly, you've got the ability to be able to continue growing. And that's usually what your future will be, a reflection of what you've already achieved at the years you've had to compete against others and arrive at this very, very prominent school.
One last question.
Okay? Yes, sir?
Since that moment you conceived of this robust and somewhat firm game plan, which you did, and while you're looking for people who have that prescribed attitude and appreciate the opportunity, it would seem that some aspect of that attitude is ambition, and maybe they want to innovate, and it seems like part of your plan is to keep to that prescribed game plan.
Mm-hmm.
And that might involve restraining, some amount of growth, not well, maybe intellectually, but you have to keep it to the mid-size hotels and so on. How do you do that? If it's restraining people in that way, or how do you find other opportunities to let them innovate in a particular manner that doesn't hamper your overall strategy?
Yeah. The question is, if we are so certain of our strategy and direction and we confine others, how do we give other people an opportunity to participate in an innovative, creative way? If you're hiring very talented people, because they, as he said, we're all ambitious. Well, ambition is, I guess, satisfied in many different ways. Is it all of a sudden being a superstar to be able to say, look, this is what I did for the company? Or is it taking on a responsibility in the company? When I say taking it on, I mean, hey, it's on your shoulders. So we all have responsibilities that we're going to be accountable for. And growing and making that better than it was when you inherited it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be of identifying something in the company that makes you sort of become prominent. It's to being able to work as a team member, to be able to be part of a team that moves the company forward, and recognize and feel in that capacity you have been properly rewarded, personally meaningful. So, as I mentioned before, we couldn't possibly keep people in the company if they weren't achieving their ambitions. And the success of Four Seasons has been that people have joined the company and have continued to stay with this company from, I think the average length of years of the top 150 senior people in the company is over 17 years. All of these people are on every headhunter's list. They all have the opportunity to go and look at further fields. They stay by choice. That's the only way a company can succeed, is the people, this serves their purpose in being able to participate and contribute in a meaningful way. We, Four Seasons, do not own any hard assets. We don't have a building that we could siphon off and sell off parts of the company to make some money. So the investors who've paid a high price of well over $3.8 billion have bought into a company that its assets are its intellectual capital. The people who continue to make the company a success. And those people are very highly qualified. So clearly, they have satisfied their ambitions. Do all of them do that? Have we lost some? Of course. So I think every company has to give and make sure they are giving people the space they need to feel that they are in a role, whether it's working for a company or working on their own, they're getting the degree of satisfaction they need.